Diana, I need you to empty your pockets. Now. William Harrison's voice sliced through the mansion's silence like ice. At 58, the real estate magnate had perfected the art of intimidation, standing in his marble kitchen doorway like a predator cornering prey. Diana Thompson, his 34-year-old black housekeeper, slowly turned from the spotless granite counter where she'd been arranging fresh flowers. Her dark eyes met his with unsettling calm. No panic, no guilt, just something that looked almost prepared. "Is there a problem, Mr. Harrison?" Her voice carried its usual professional tone, but underneath lay a steel William had never noticed before. "My wife's diamond tennis bracelet is missing from the master bedroom. $25,000. He crossed his arms, letting the accusation hang heavy in the air. "You were the only one who cleaned up there today." Diana nodded slowly, as if processing brand new information, but her hands remained steady as she folded the kitchen towel with deliberate precision. "And you automatically thought of me. Interesting." William had built his empire on the belief that people like Diana were predictable, controllable. Over 20 years, he'd fired dozens of black employees with similar accusations, watching them slink away quietly rather than fight back. Fear was his greatest weapon. "Don't make this harder than necessary," he continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "I know you have a daughter to support. Things are tight. Maybe you just got confused about what belonged to you." Then Diana did something that shattered William's carefully constructed script. She smiled, not nervous or apologetic, but the kind of smile someone gives when a long-held suspicion finally gets confirmed. "Mr. Harrison," she said, pulling her phone from her apron pocket with deliberately slow movements, "before I empty my pockets, how about we call the police? I'm sure they'd love to investigate a $25,000 theft." William's confidence wavered. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow, at the same time, we'll bring you another story of black people leading the way that you won't want to miss. William stared at Diana, his mind scrambling to regain control of the situation. In his experience, guilty people didn't offer to call the police. They begged, made excuses, or tried to negotiate their way out of trouble. "That won't be necessary," he said quickly. But Diana was already dialing. 911. "Yes, I'd like to report a theft. $25,000 worth of jewelry." She paused, her eyes never leaving William's face. "The homeowner is accusing his domestic worker, and I think it's important we get this sorted out properly." William lunged forward, grabbing for the phone. "Hang up. There's no need to involve the police." Diana stepped back smoothly, keeping the phone out of reach. "Why not, Mr. Harrison? If I stole your wife's bracelet, surely you want it back." Something cold settled in William's stomach. He'd played this game dozens of times before, but never had an employee responded like this. Diana's composure was unnerving, almost as if she'd been expecting this exact confrontation. "Yes, we'll wait for them here," Diana continued into the phone, giving the mansion's address with perfect clarity. As she hung up, William noticed something that made his blood run cold. Diana's hands weren't just steady, they were relaxed. She looked like someone who had just set a long-planned strategy into motion. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded. "If you cooperate, we can work something out privately." Diana tilted her head, studying him with those unsettling dark eyes. "Work something out? You mean like you worked things out with Jasmine from your downtown office? Or Marcus from the property management division? Or Sarah from accounting?" William's face went pale. Those names, those cases, how could she possibly know about? "Funny thing about false accusations, Mr. Harrison," Diana continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "They leave paper trails, especially when they follow such predictable patterns." The sound of sirens in the distance made William's hands shake. This was spiraling completely out of control, and for the first time in decades, he wasn't the one holding the power. The police arrived within minutes, their presence transforming William's sanctuary into a crime scene. Officer Martinez, a stern-faced Latina with sharp eyes, took charge immediately. "So we have an allegation of theft?" she asked, looking between William and Diana. "That's correct," William said, trying to reclaim his authority. "My employee here was the only person with access to my wife's jewelry today, and now a very expensive bracelet is missing." Officer Martinez turned to Diana. "And you deny taking it?" I don't just deny it, Diana replied calmly. I welcome a complete investigation. In fact, I insist on it. William watched in growing horror as Diana began pulling items from her pockets with theatrical precision. Keys, a small notebook, lip balm, a few crumpled receipts, no bracelet. Perhaps we should search your purse, Officer Martinez suggested. Of course. Diana handed over her worn leather bag without hesitation. As the officer methodically went through Diana's belongings, William noticed something that made his chest tighten with anxiety. Diana kept glancing at her small notebook, and each time she did, that mysterious smile grew wider. Nothing here, Officer Martinez announced. Mr. Harrison, are you certain the bracelet was stolen? Sometimes jewelry gets misplaced. It was stolen, William insisted, his voice rising. She's hidden it somewhere. Check her car. Sir, I need you to calm down. Officer Martinez's tone carried a warning. We'll conduct a thorough investigation, but I need to ask, have you actually seen this bracelet recently? William opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. Had he seen it? He couldn't remember the last time he'd paid attention to his wife's jewelry. Sarah traveled so much for her gallery business, and when she was home, they barely spoke. My wife said it was missing, he said weakly. And where is your wife now? She's in New York. Art exhibition. Officer Martinez made a note. So she's not here to confirm the bracelet's missing? Diana cleared her throat softly. Officer, might I suggest something? Mr. Harrison seems very certain I took this bracelet. What if we check the bedroom security cameras? I'm sure a man of his means has excellent security. William's face went ashen. The cameras. Oh God, the cameras. That's an excellent idea, Officer Martinez said. Mr. Harrison, can we review your security footage? William stood frozen, his mind racing. There were indeed cameras in every room of the house, but what they would show wasn't Diana stealing a bracelet. What they would show was something far, far worse. The security system it's been having technical issues, William stammered, backing toward the kitchen island as if it could shield him from what was coming. Diana's smile turned predatory. Technical issues. That's strange, Mr. Harrison. Yesterday you mentioned how proud you were of your new system. Top of the line, you said. Records everything in crystal clear 4K. Officer Martinez's expression hardened. In her 15 years on the force, she'd learned to recognize the body language of a man whose lies were catching up with him. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to need to see that footage. The system administrator isn't available until Monday. The password is Sarah 1985, Diana interrupted quietly. Your wife's name and birth year. You use it for everything, including your computer when you're working from home. The color drained completely from William's face. How could you possibly know your password? Diana's voice carried a new edge of authority. The same way I know about the offshore accounts. The same way I know about the insurance fraud in the Phoenix development. The same way I know about what really happened to employees who quit over the years. Officer Martinez held up a hand for silence, her instincts screaming that this case was about to become much more complicated. Ma'am, are you saying you have information about other crimes? Diana reached into her small notebook and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Officer, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound unbelievable, but I want you to know that everything I say can be verified. William lunged forward desperately. She's lying. She's trying to deflect from her own theft. What theft? Diana asked calmly. Officer Martinez, I'd like you to call Mrs. Sarah Harrison in New York. Her number is 212-555-0147. Ask her about the tennis bracelet. Why would we need to? Officer Martinez began. Because, Diana continued, Mrs. Harrison sold that bracelet 3 months ago to cover gambling debts her husband doesn't know about. She's been selling pieces of her collection for over a year. There is no missing bracelet. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the massive refrigerator. William's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. But more importantly, Diana said, her voice growing stronger, I want you to ask Mr. Harrison why he's been following me after work for the past 2 weeks, and why he installed that tracking device on my car. Officer Martinez's hand moved instinctively toward her radio. Tracking device. William's legs seemed to give out. He grabbed the kitchen counter for support, his face now gray with panic. Diana wasn't finished. And then Officer Martinez, I think you should ask him about the real reason he hired me 8 months ago, because I can guarantee you, it wasn't for my housekeeping skills. Officer Martinez called for backup as Diana's revelations transformed the kitchen into the center of something much darker than a simple theft allegation. William slumped against the granite countertop, watching his carefully constructed world crumble. "The tracking device is under my rear bumper," Diana said matter-of-factly. "Black magnetic case, about the size of a matchbox. Mr. Harrison has been monitoring my movements since 2 weeks ago Tuesday." That's insane," William whispered, but his protest lacked conviction. Officer Martinez was already on her radio, requesting a crime scene unit and a detective. "Mr. Harrison, I need you to remain here while we investigate these allegations." Diana opened her notebook again, revealing pages of neat handwriting. "Officer, I documented everything. Times, dates, license plate numbers. Mr. Harrison has been parking outside my apartment building, following me to my daughter's school, even showing up at the grocery store where I shop." "Why?" Officer Martinez demanded, looking at William with disgust. "Why would you stalk your own employee?" William's silence spoke volumes, but Diana answered anyway. "Because he discovered I wasn't who he thought I was." She turned to face William directly. "Tell her, Mr. Harrison. Tell Officer Martinez what you found out about me 2 weeks ago." William's hands shook as he gripped the counter harder. I don't know what you're talking about." Diana sighed, as if disappointed in a slow student. "You ran a background check on me, didn't you? Not the basic one you did when you hired me, a deep one, and you found something that terrified you." She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a saved web page. "Officer Martinez, my name is Diana Thompson, but it's also Dr. Diana Thompson. I graduated from Harvard Law School 15 years ago. I specialized in employment law, specifically cases involving discrimination and wrongful termination." Officer Martinez stared at the screen, then at Diana, then at William. "You're a lawyer?" "Not just any lawyer," Diana continued. "I've spent the last 5 years working undercover, documenting workplace discrimination cases. I've helped bring down 12 companies for systematic racial bias in hiring and firing practices." William's legs finally gave out completely. He slid down the cabinet to sit on the kitchen floor, his head in his hands. "And Harrison Properties," Diana said, her voice now carrying the authority of a courtroom, "is about to become number 13. The sound of multiple sirens grew louder outside. Through the kitchen window, Diana could see unmarked cars joining the police vehicles in William's circular driveway. "The FBI is very interested in your business practices, Mr. Harrison, especially your habit of targeting black employees with false theft accusations to force them out without severance or references." Officer Martinez looked between them in amazement. This was all planned? Diana nodded. "Navajo, Mexico, every conversation recorded, every discriminatory action witnessed and verified, every illegal practice exposed." She turned back to William, who was now openly weeping on his kitchen floor. "You want to know what changed everything, Mr. Harrison? It wasn't what you discovered about me. It was what I discovered about you." The front door opened and Detective Sarah Chen entered with 2 FBI agents. The real investigation was just beginning. Detective Chen, a sharp-featured woman in her 40s, surveyed the kitchen scene with practiced eyes. William Harrison, real estate mogul, sitting on his marble floor in a broken heap. Diana Thompson, standing tall with the confidence of someone who'd been planning this moment for months. "Dr. Thompson," Detective Chen said with a slight nod. "Agent Rodriguez from the FBI Civil Rights Division said you had something for us?" Diana reached into her bag and pulled out a small digital recorder. 8 months of conversations, Detective. Every discriminatory comment, every illegal instruction, every time Mr. Harrison revealed his true methods. William looked up from the floor, his eyes red and desperate. "This is entrapment. You can't—" "Actually, we can," Agent Rodriguez interrupted as he entered the kitchen. "Dr. Thompson was operating under a legitimate civil rights investigation. Everything she recorded in common areas of the workplace is admissible." Diana pressed play on the recorder. William's voice filled the kitchen, crystal clear. "The trick with people like her is making them think they have no choice. Black women, especially single mothers, they'll take whatever abuse you give them because they're scared. I've been doing this for 20 years, find something small they did wrong, threaten to call the police, and they'll quit rather than risk their record. The current William on the floor looked nothing like the confident predator on the recording. There's more, Diana said, fast-forwarding. Here's him instructing his property managers on how to screen out black applicants without technically violating fair housing laws. And here's where he brags about the insurance money he collected when he deliberately let his low-income properties fall into disrepair. Agent Rodriguez was taking notes rapidly. Dr. Thompson, how many employees has he targeted with false accusations? 27 that I could verify. All black or Hispanic. All forced to quit under threat of criminal charges they couldn't afford to fight. Diana's voice carried years of suppressed anger. And it gets worse. She pulled out a tablet, swiping to a series of photographs. Mr. Harrison has been systematically destroying evidence of his discrimination. These photos show him removing personnel files from his office building 3 nights ago. William's face went white. You were there? In my building? I have security access, remember? You gave it to me so I could clean up after hours when no one was around. Diana's smile was cold. What you didn't realize was that I was documenting everything you were trying to hide. Detective Chen studied the photos. These show him removing files. Files of employees who'd filed EEOC complaints or threatened legal action. He was destroying evidence of a pattern of discrimination going back 15 years. Agent Rodriguez looked at William with disgust. Mr. Harrison, you have the right to remain silent. Wait, William scrambled to his feet. I can make this right. I can pay restitution, change my practices. You can discuss that with your lawyer, Detective Chen said firmly. Right now you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and violation of federal civil rights laws. As the handcuffs clicked around William's wrists, Diana felt a weight she'd carried for 8 months finally lift from her shoulders. But she wasn't done yet. Detective, she said quietly, there's something else. Something that goes beyond just discrimination. Everyone in the kitchen turned to look at her. Mr. Harrison didn't just target employees. He's been using his real estate empire to systematically exclude black families from certain neighborhoods. And he's done it with the help of banks, insurance companies, and city officials. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This isn't just about wrongful termination, Diana continued. This is about housing discrimination on a massive scale, and I have the evidence to prove it. Agent Rodriguez leaned forward intently. Dr. Thompson, are you saying this involves federal housing violations? Diana nodded grimly. Much worse than that. Mr. Harrison has been running a modern redlining operation for over a decade. She pulled up another file on her tablet. These are mortgage applications from his properties. Notice a pattern? Detective Chen studied the screen. These are all denied applications for black families, even ones with good credit scores. Exactly. But here's the key. Mr. Harrison owns a mortgage company, Harrison Financial Services. When black families apply for homes in certain neighborhoods, his company automatically denies them. Then his real estate company swoops in to buy the properties at below-market prices. William, handcuffed and flanked by officers, made one last desperate attempt. You can't prove intent. Actually, I can. Diana's voice was steady as a judge pronouncing sentence. Because you told me exactly how you do it. Multiple times. She played another recording. The beauty of the system is that it looks legal on paper. We just set the standards impossibly high for the neighborhoods we want to keep clean. Then we buy up the properties when they can't get financing elsewhere. It's brilliant, really. We control both sides of the transaction. Agent Rodriguez was already on his phone, calling in additional federal resources. This was bigger than a single discrimination case. This was a criminal enterprise. How many families? Detective Chen asked quietly. Diana consulted her notes. Over 300 denied mortgages in the past 5 years alone. Hundreds of families forced out of neighborhoods they should have been able to afford. And the city officials you mentioned? Planning Commissioner Jake Morrison has been approving zoning changes that benefit Harrison properties while blocking affordable housing projects. In exchange, Mr. Harrison gave him a 40% stake in Harrison Financial Services. William's shoulders sagged as he realized the scope of what Diana had uncovered. This wasn't just about his business. This would destroy his political connections, his social standing, everything he'd built over decades. "There's one more thing," Diana said, her voice softer now. "The tracking device on my car, the stalking. That started when Mr. Harrison realized I was getting close to uncovering the housing scheme. He thought if he could intimidate me or catch me doing something wrong, he could discredit me before I could expose him." She looked directly at William, who was staring at the floor in defeat. "But what Mr. Harrison never understood is that people like me don't scare easily. We've been dealing with people like him our entire lives, and we've learned that the only way to stop a bully is to stand up to them with evidence they can't deny." Agent Rodriguez finished his call and turned back to the group. "Dr. Thompson, we're going to need you to come to the federal building tomorrow. This case is now a joint operation between Civil Rights Division and Financial Crimes." Diana nodded. "I've been ready for this moment for 8 months." As William was led out of his own kitchen in handcuffs, Diana stood alone in the massive space where she'd pretended to be subservient for so long. The marble countertops and gold fixtures that had once represented William's power now looked like monuments to his downfall. But Diana wasn't thinking about victory. She was thinking about the families who'd been denied homes, the employees who'd been forced to quit jobs they needed, and the communities that had been systematically excluded from opportunities. The real work was just beginning. 6 months later, Diana stood in the federal courthouse as Judge Patricia Williams read the verdict. The courtroom was packed with former Harrison Properties employees, families who'd been denied housing, and reporters covering what had become the largest housing discrimination case in the state's history. On the charges of conspiracy to violate federal fair housing laws, we find the defendant William Harrison guilty. On the charges of mail fraud in connection with mortgage discrimination, guilty. On the charges of obstruction of justice, Diana listened to each guilty verdict with quiet satisfaction. William Harrison sat at the defendant's table, a broken man who'd aged a decade in 6 months. His real estate empire had crumbled, his assets seized, his reputation destroyed. But the victory felt bigger than just one man's downfall. After the sentencing, 12 years in federal prison plus restitution of $47 million to affected families, Diana was surrounded by reporters on the courthouse steps. "Dr. Thompson, what's next for you?" Diana smiled, the same calm smile she'd worn in William's kitchen that day. "This case is closed, but the work continues. There are William Harrisons in every city, in every industry, people who think they can use power and prejudice to control others." She looked directly into the cameras. "But here's what I want every person watching to understand. They're not as untouchable as they think. They leave evidence, they get overconfident, and there are people like me, people who look like servants or employees or victims, who are actually gathering that evidence. Any advice for others facing discrimination? Document everything. Date, time, witnesses, recordings if legal in your state. And remember, their power only works if you let them convince you that you're powerless." Later that evening, Diana sat in her small apartment with her daughter Maya, now 16 and heading to college on a scholarship funded by the Harrison Properties Settlement Fund. "Mom," Maya said, looking up from her homework, "are you proud of what you did?" Diana considered the question carefully. "I'm proud that we got justice for a lot of people who deserved it, but Maya, I want you to understand something important." She set down her tea and looked at her daughter seriously. "I didn't do this for revenge or to destroy someone. I did it because when people in power abuse that power, someone has to stand up and say enough. Someone has to be willing to take the risk." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "And sometimes that someone looks like a maid that nobody pays attention to." Diana smiled. "Exactly. The most dangerous person to a corrupt system is someone that system underestimates." Her phone buzzed with a text message from her new law partner. 3 more companies want to settle rather than face investigation. Word is spreading. Diana showed the message to Maya. "Looks like we're just getting started." Outside their apartment window, the city lights twinkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there were more William Harrisons, more systems of oppression that needed to be exposed. But Diana Thompson, doctor of law, undercover investigator, and the woman who'd brought down a discrimination empire, was ready for them. Because sometimes the person who changes everything is the person no one expects to fight back. And sometimes, justice wears an apron and carries a notebook full of evidence. The maid had become the prosecutor, the hunted had become the hunter, And William Harrison's biggest mistake wasn't underestimating Diana Thompson's intelligence. It was underestimating her courage.